There we go. Just so that we've got this to look back on if we want to. Yeah, so rings is what I was going to talk about today, and repairing. So you guys in your packs have got a bit of ring tube. This is what the ring tube looks like, as we talked about last week. And you've got like a little chunk of it. So first of all, I wanted to talk about just cutting it and getting it off of the tube. I'm gonna get my file. So you wanna, when you're taking a ring off the tube, you want it to be, the edge to be as flat as it can be, so that everything's as straight as it can be. So your guys' ones should be pretty flat. This is where I would start off with my calipers and dividers. So I'm going to use these a lot in making a ring. So say for example, you wanted a 5mm ring band. We would measure it and use our dividers to get it to the right width. I then use this to draw myself a guideline along the tube around each edge. So that I've got a guide as to where I'm cutting. If I didn't have a guide, I'd more likely cut it squint and it would go wonky. So I've got my saw blade and the saw frame, and I'm gonna cut the ring tube the same sort of way I would cut a metal tube, and that's around each edge, sort of rotating it round in order for it to be square. So I'm rotating the ring tube so that I've got a little cut in each side of it. So I'm cutting in each bit from the middle. And that will make it square. So with the ring tube, the tube that you guys have got, you should be able to make a couple of rings from it, obviously totally dependent on how thick you want the design to be. So we've cut the ring slice off. So I'm going to use this one because it's a bit bigger to show. Once we've got the slice that we're wanting, the first thing that we want to do is to size it. So we would do that with this tool in the workshop, which is called a ring corer. It's got a blade down the side, and we use it from the middle and say core out the wax. So it's quite nice and easy to do. We pop it on there, and you just sort of spin it around inside. Like basically it's just like a giant pencil sharpener. So we'll sort of gently take out the parts of wax from the middle. The bits of wax that are coming out are really tiny little slivers. You don't want to put too much pressure into it, because then it'll jump and be lumpy, and just sort of be gentle with it and curve it round so that we can slowly take the material away. You then would also want to use you want to check the size of it as you're going. So the ring mandrel that I've got with the sizes on is in the office, but I would be putting it on to the mandrel and just checking what the size is, whether I needed to take any more off. It's the sort of wax is the sort of material that is so much easier to take material away than it is to put material back on. So although we can do both, make it easier for you if you do a little bit at a time and keep checking it. So that's how we would core out and size the ring, which would be the first thing that you would do. Then you have your ring for you to design or do whatever you want to do with it. The other thing I would say is to keep going back to the calipers and the dividers, because it keeps things really accurate. So if we wanted to carve a band that was like 3 mil wide, I would just use my calipers, set it to 3 mil. And then draw around so that I've got myself a guideline of which I can file to or saw to, so that I know what I'm trying to do in the wax before I do it. Another way is if you had like the cylinder, or if you just had sheet wax, if you was doing something a little bit more larger or crazy, or you was finding the ring tube too restrictive, then what you would want to do to size it is to work out what the diameter of the ring size is that you need. So let's take for example, we were a size M, and the inside diameter of a size M is 16.5 millimeters. I would then half that to get my radius, which is about 8.2. So I'd use my calipers to get my radius. 8.2. It's an 8.18, yeah. Get the dividers. So then with the cylinder or the sheet or whatever it may be, I would use the dividers to mark myself the right size circle that I needed. Then I would drill a hole and saw pierce out of the middle to get the right size that I wanted. Is that all making sense? Have we got any questions about ring sizing?
My main question is, I mean, ideally I would have liked to do my ring this week, but there probably is an alternative tool. But see the tool for getting out the middle for the sizing with the blade.
Yeah.
Is that only able to use it in the workshop? You know, if you only got like a limited amount of it.
Yeah, I've only got 2 in the workshop, so that's something you'd want to come in for. If you wanted to do it sooner, then you can use your saw blade. So there's, again, if you were to measure the exact size or the internal diameter and mark it around the ring tube, then you could use your saw blade to get in there and cut it round. I know it's a bit trickier. It's much easier with the Cora.
Yeah, I might just wait till Friday and use that tool.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. But in terms of making the ring, the sizing would be once you've cut it off, the sizing would be the first thing that you would want to do, so that once when you get in your design and that, if you're bringing the walls down so that it's sort of a much thinner band, you want to know that it's going to fit first, otherwise you'll get rid of too much material.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably just cut this into, 2 rings, and then on Friday do the middles, and then maybe have them for next Friday.
Yeah, that sounds a good plan. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about repairs or joining material together. So I mentioned a bit about this before, but so this is what I would. Can everybody see? This is what I would call as like the hot working tool, which again is what you would want to use when you're in the workshop. But we'll just sort of talk about it so that we're all like aware of it. So I'm going to use the spirit lamp for this. Let me see it. Yeah. Okay. So I've got the spirit lamp and the dental tools in front of me, these guys, as well as my solder probe. So I want to talk about if you've carved a ring and you have snapped it and it's broken, so you want to fix it. I've got some scrap wax as well. That's always handy to keep a hold of it. So this break is there's a gap in the middle. So I'm going to need to build a bit of wax back onto it and tack it together. So I'm going to pop my solder probe in the flame to get it to heat up a bit. Again, this is something that you could also do with the soldering iron, or you can do with putting a tool in the torch, in a very tiny torch flame. So I've got my solder probe, and I'm basically going to use it to delicately melt it to re-glue it back together. So I'd start off with just a little bit, trying to tack it together a bit so it's attached. And then I'm going to use my scrap wax to scoop up some wax to build on the top. So I'm scooping some up, and then I'm going to pop it on. I want to wait a few minutes for it to set a bit with the wax. And I'm just going to build myself up a bit of a layer. So I've got a little sort of blob on top. There's a little bit of a gap underneath as well. So I might want to pop a blob underneath, but I could also try and melt it a bit in place. The other thing to look out for, and this is very, very granular and very detailed, is you might get like a tiny little air bubble when you're joining wax together, which is very hard to see, but it would be it would look like just a tiny white blob in your join. If you can, try and pop it, so try and pop a hot tool into it to get rid of it. Air bubbles in the waxes, they can sometimes sort of break out a little bit when you're casting it into the metal, and sort of cause a little bit of a cavity. But it's not nowhere near on the same scale as how bad it can be in ceramics. So when I've got it together, got it back together, and I've also got the lump on the top, then I would be using my file and reshaping it to get it to blend back in again. I can see I've still got, it's still not quite right. There's still some gaps underneath, so I'd probably melt a bit more to get it to fully fill up that gap and get it back together. Yeah, trying to think. Yeah, so that would be like a ring repair. The other thing I wanted to say was if you was joining bits together. So say you had you had your ring, and then you had like a design that you'd cut out and you wanted to like stick them together. So that would be with a bit of precise melting, basically. For that, I might use, if I wanted to join these two together, I might use a bigger tool like the dental tool, and I'm basically trying to slightly melt both pieces and stick it together. As the melting's quite gentle, and then you want to hold it for a few, like I say, a few seconds, few minutes, till the wax has set. So that would be that joined together. I would probably, I can go in with like a solder probe and just make sure that it is fully joined so that they are like genuinely attached. So that that leads nicely, I'd say. I was going to talk more about this next week, but I'll say about this now, about spruing, which is, as we said, joining a wax tube wax rod onto the piece so that we can attach it to the tree. So that would be little rods like these, size dependent on the size of the model. But so that would be a case of, again, first of all, choosing where it goes on the model, which would be at the thickest part, but slightly melting and then attaching it on. So maybe put this here. So it's that would be a sprue attached to the model. Like I say, I can do the sprueing, so that's not something that we need to worry about for this project. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about today, was rings and repairs or joining. So did anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Millie, can you use a candle? Is that hot enough?
It probably won't get hot enough, and you'll probably find it just makes the tools and the wax sooty.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can by all means give it a go, but it might not work as great. The spirit lamps work better because it's like a cleaner flame.
Yeah. Okay. But ultimately we are carving the wax out. We're not adding wax to it. If you know, you can add, but when you make a model, you can maybe carve, but you can maybe also add material to it. But I don't know whether you can do that.
What you mean, like wax on wax?
Yeah. If we like, if we've carved too much off and we want to put it back on again, or if we want something sort of coming out of it, for example.
Yeah. So that would be, yes, you could do that. That's with that would be with the melting and with joining the bits together or building it up.
So yeah, so if we want to do that, we really have to be in the workshop, because obviously we've not got all the other bits and pieces.
Yeah, yeah. It's easier if you're in the workshop.
Yeah. Or use a soldering iron.
Yeah, if you have a soldering iron at home, then use a soldering iron.
So would you just put the soldering iron directly onto the wax and sort of add bits to it, or how would you do that? Is just like this with that probe? Yeah,
just the same. Just treat it the same. So the reason why I use that solder probe and the oil lamp is just because it's thinner, and so I feel like I'm in a little bit more control, because you have to be quite delicate with the wax, because obviously when you've got a hot tool it can be easy to melt more than you want, and the bigger the head of the soldering iron, then it can be a bit less control, but it does exactly the same thing. So I would it's basically, it's a case of personal preference, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. We got any other questions? No. Okay. If you guys have if you do have questions that you don't want to talk about in the group, that's absolutely fine. Just send me an email. We can arrange a one-to-one chat. No problem at all. Yeah, don't get stressed out by these deadlines. If this Friday is too soon, then that's not a problem. Then just go for next Friday the 13th to have a model or 2 models if you have them, and we'll get them cast. Next week, what we're going to what I've got is videos that I want you to watch. So next week's going to be a little bit different with the Zoom. We still have the Zoom, but I have 3 videos that are on Moodle, which I can send you links to if we would like. Then in the Zoom, we'll just have a chat about the videos and chat about the process, so that we sort of understand it. So the videos are how to sprue a wax tree, investing, and casting. So it sort of it shows you how we do it here, to help make the process all make sense. So yeah, and then we'll just chat about it, sort of little discussion together.
Are they going to be put onto Moodle now?
They're already on Moodle. They're already on Moodle. Yeah. So if we just make sure before next week you've watched them.
Where have you put them on Moodle?
On the workshop workshop support page. So I'll send a link through.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, it's about 15 minutes in total. I think 5-minute each video, so it shouldn't take too long. But yeah, so if we're all good, I'm going to leave it there, and let you guys go.
Thank you.
Thanks, May. That was great.
Well, I'll
Bye.
see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.